Hello, and welcome to another episode of Soap Goes to the Oscars. This is number 146. I'm recording on February 3rd, 2026. And I started the movie this morning and just finished it moments ago. And the movie this time was Spellbound. This one was available on both the Internet Archive and Daily Motion for free. I chose to watch it on the Internet Archive, but either would have worked for the price. So jumping right in, this one probably won't be long. Looking at Wikipedia here. Spellbound is a 1945 American psychological thriller film directed by Alfred Hitchcock, starring Ingrid Bergman, Gregory Peck, Michael Chekhov, and Leo G. Carroll. Follows a psychoanalyst who falls in love with the new head of the Vermont hospital in which she works. Although the film is based on the 1927 novel The House of Dr. Edwards by Hilary St. George Saunders and John Palmer, the plots are dramatically different. Filming of Spellbound took place in the summer of 1944 in Vermont, Utah, and Los Angeles. The film was nominated for 6 Academy Awards, and those were Best Picture, Best Director, Best Supporting Actor for Michael Chekhov, Best Cinematography for George Barnes, Best Original Score, and Best Visual Effects. Produced by David O. Selznick, cinematography George Barnes, as I said, edited by Hal C. Kern, music by Miklos Rocha, production companies Selznick International Pictures and Vanguard Films, distributed by United Artists, released October 31st, 1945 in New York, and December 28th, 1945 in the rest of the U.S., with a runtime of 111 minutes. Spellbound was made over contract disagreements between Alfred Hitchcock and producer David O. Selznick. Hitchcock's contract with Selznick began in March 1939, but only resulted in 3 films: Rebecca, Spellbound, and The Paradine Case. He made 7 other films during that period under loan-out deals to other studios, including 1946's Notorious, which was sold to RKO in mid-production. Selznick had wanted Hitchcock to make a film based upon Selznick's own positive experience with psychoanalysis. Selznick, at Hitchcock's suggestion, purchased the rights to the 1927 novel, The House of Dr. Edwards, for approximately $40,000. In December 1943, Hitchcock and his wife, Alma Revile, began working on a treatment of the novel and consulted prominent British psychologists and psychoanalysts as to accurately represent the psychological elements of the story. I was curious about that. However, the following month, in January 1944, Hitchcock hired Angus MacPhail, with whom he had collaborated on several war-related short films, to co-author the treatment. MacPhail was ultimately given the adaptation credit, and the extent to which Revile was involved in the final product is unknown. Following the completion of the treatment, screenwriter Ben Hecht began writing the screenplay. Between May and July 1944, Selznick submitted numerous drafts of Hecht's screenplay for approval from the Motion Picture Association of America, which objected to various words and phrases in it, including sex menace, frustrations, libido, and tomcat. This resulted in some alterations in the screenplay, including the removal of most of a character named Mary Carmichael, a violent nymphomaniac at Green Manors. However, the suicide of Dr. Murchison in the screenplay, which typically violated the MPAA's rules against depicting suicide, was allowed to remain, as it was reasoned by Selznick that the character was clearly of unsound mind, rendering him an exception. Critical response. I think you know where I'm going with this. Newsweek's review evaluated the film as a superior and suspenseful melodrama. Bosley Crowther of the New York Times wrote that the story was a rather obvious and often told tale, but the manner and quality of its telling is extraordinarily fine. Firm texture of the narration, the flow of continuity and dialogue, the shock of the unexpected, the scope of image are all happily there. Okay, so full disclosure, as always, you may hear it in my voice a little bit. I did not sleep last night. So I woke up much earlier than intended and decided to start this movie. Maybe not the best idea. Sometimes I think, you're watching something, listening to something, reading a text and replying to a text. It depends on your mood. If you're not in a good mood, too tired, overtired, whatever, you may not respond to the thing in the way you normally would. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe that's the case here. Maybe it's not. I gave this 2.5 stars. Performances were good. This is the first thing in this series that I've seen Gregory Peck in. This was one of his earliest movies, maybe like less less than 5 movies at this point. I have seen him in some of his later things, but never the To Kill a Mockingbird, which is the one I've always wanted to see him in. But anyway, I did not really like this. It was a lot of psychobabble bullshit, in my opinion. And I was curious if they had consulted because had seen on IMDb that there was like a few different writers and stuff listed. Oh, one thing to note though, they did spend a lot of time. Not that they actually filmed there, but they did spend a lot of time in Rochester, New York, which is where I am from originally. But anywho, yeah, I just didn't. I did not connect with this one. I thought that she was not bad, but a little over the top at times. Peck was good, but I don't know, just all the dream analysis and I mean, and the special effects at the time, I'm sure were fine. There's a scene of the two of them skiing down a mountain, and it's just like close-ups of them, like kind of bouncing up and down next to each other, like they're pretending to ski, but just sort of casually throwing glances at each other as if they're not hurtling down a mountain towards a cliff, by the way, which they just narrowly escape. And in that moment, she took him there to try to remember why he doesn't like white things or why he doesn't like this hill or this mountain or whatever, ski. And come to find out that when he was little, spoilers, he's sliding down like a banister outside and his little brother was at the bottom and he kicked him accidentally and the kid flew onto like the spikes of a fence right in front of the banister. But in the moment he realizes and he was like, I didn't kill him. I didn't kill my brother. And it was rather ridiculous. And then there was sort of like a little twist ending after that, but it was a little bit obvious, even with me not paying attention fully through this whole movie. It was kind of obvious that it was who it was in the end. So I don't know. This one just didn't connect with me much at all. And it's slightly different than the movies that Hitchcock has that I've come across in the last several years of these movies where he's had, he won for Rebecca. Rebecca was way back in 1940. He also had Foreign Correspondent that year, which was a little bit different of a movie for him. Suspicion was very similar to Rebecca. I feel like he had another one in here. Watch on the Rhine, maybe. I can't remember, but they all started to feel a little bit similar to me. And this one, while slightly different, and the other ones, there was elements of like a suspicious man. There was a husband and the wife. It doesn't show like in Rebecca and like in Suspicion. And there was a little bit of that in this too, because Gregory Peck's character had amnesia and she didn't really know, where he was coming from, but she's trying to analyze him. The aspect that was different was that she was a psychologist, so she was sort of figuring him out a little bit, as opposed to the other ones where the wives were just suspicious and didn't really have anything to go on. But I don't know. Yeah, this one just didn't work for me. So I'm rambling now and I'm tired and I'm going to go to bed. So I'll see you next time.